Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're going deep. You sent us this news piece about a shocking crime in Delta State, Nigeria, and we're going to try to unpack not just what happened, but, why it happened.
Absolutely. We'll explore the complexities of human relationships, the allure of wealth, the dark side of ambition that can lead to devastating consequences.
Yeah, this isn't just a news story. It's about the dark side of human nature, how trust can be shattered and what some people will do for money. And this is about two friends, Ife, a bricklayer, and Paul, who owned a successful boutique.
And right from the start, you see their financial disparity creating a power imbalance in their friendship, and that becomes a key factor in how this whole tragedy unfolds.
Yeah, and it's almost like a blueprint for exploitation.
Mm.
Ife finds out Paul wants to buy some land, and that's when the deception begins. He makes up this elaborate lie about knowing about some prime real estate, and he convinces Paul to hand over 30 million naira.
That's a huge amount of money. And Paul, trusting his friend, completely hands it over without hesitation. This case really highlights how societal power dynamics, especially financial disparities, can create vulnerabilities that someone like Ife can easily exploit.
I know it's mind-blowing. He pockets the money, cooks up fake documents to keep Paul in the dark, and goes about his life. And this is just the beginning.
As time goes on, Paul wants to start building on this land, and Ife is trapped in his own lie, and his desperation starts to lead him down a very dark path.
Yeah, this is where things take a really dark turn. Ife realizes he's in too deep, and instead of coming clean, he starts thinking the unthinkable murder. He tries to hire an acquaintance to kill Paul for 450,000 Noral hero.
It's a chilling example of how greed can warp someone's morals. Imagine valuing a human life so little you reduce it to a mere transaction. But thankfully, the acquaintance backs out, but that doesn't stop Ife.
No, he doesn't stop there. He sets his sights on the Otakutu community shrine, looking for a more ruthless and frankly terrifying solution.
And this is where the story gets even more disturbing. Ife spins a web of lies to the chief priest, portraying Paul as someone deserving of punishment. He even goes so far as to offer Paul as a sacrifice to the village deity.
I'm trying to wrap my head around this. What could possibly drive someone to such extremes to exploit not just a friend's trust, but the sacred beliefs of his community?
It's a horrifying example of how far someone will go to cover their tracks and how easily religious beliefs can be manipulated for personal gain.
So, under the influence of Eve's lies and a hefty bribe, the chief priest agrees to this horrific plan.
And this is where we shift from the manipulation to the gruesome reality of the crime. Eve lures Paul to the beach, where a group of over 6 people are waiting to ambush him.
Wow, they attack Paul, overpower him, and mercilessly sever his neck. It's a level of brutality that's hard to even comprehend.
They dispose of Paul's body in the river, trying to make it look like an accident. But as you'll see, even the disposal of the body becomes part of Eve's twisted scheme. A few days later, news breaks of a lifeless body floating in the river, throwing a wrench into Eve's plan.
Hold on, so they already killed Paul, and now there's another body in the river. This is getting complicated.
It is, and Eve's response is truly disturbing. Instead of panicking, he and his accomplices retrieve the body, go to horrifying lengths to weigh it down and toss it back in the river, all to protect their secret.
This is unbelievable. Every step of the way, it seems like Eve is sinking deeper into this web of lies and violence.
And it's about to get even worse. Remember, this is all while Paul's family is left wondering what happened to him. This creates the perfect opportunity for Eve's most heartless act yet. So while the community is reeling from this discovery of a body and Paul's family is, frantic with worry, Eve sees a chance to profit even further from this whole tragedy.
Oh no, he's not going to try to extort money from Paul's family, is he?
He does exactly that. He cooks up this story about Paul being kidnapped and demands a ransom from his grieving family.
This is just sickening, preying on their grief and desperation like that. It's hard to believe someone could be so callous.
It really is a testament to how greed can completely erode someone's conscience. He starts by demanding 7 million naira, a sum the family scrambles to put together and deliver, hoping it will bring Paul home.
It's heartbreaking to imagine what Paul's family must have been going through, every moment of uncertainty, every shred of hope, clinging to the belief that their loved one might still be alive.
And all the while, Eve's playing them like puppets, growing richer from their despair. But his greed doesn't stop there. Just 4 days later, he contacts the family again, claiming the kidnappers are now demanding another 10 million naira.
He's really going to milk this for all it's worth, isn't he?
He is the family desperate to get Paul back. Somehow manages to raise the money. It's tragic to think of them draining their resources, driven by the hope that their loved one will return while the person responsible is living comfortably off their pain.
So Eve's got 17 million naira at this point. You'd think that would be enough to satisfy even the greediest person.
Unfortunately, not emboldened by his success, contacts the family a third time, demanding yet another 10 million naira. The family makes a valiant effort, but can only gather 9.5 million.
Wow. It's a truly despicable act, exploiting their love and loyalty for his own selfish gain. But tell me, does his scheme finally start to unravel?
Yes, it does. And ironically, it's one of East's attempts to make his story more believable that leads to his downfall in a bid to, further solidify his fabricated kidnapping tale.
Mm.
He returns Paul's SIM card to the family, claiming it was the only thing the supposed kidnappers released.
It's almost like he's taunting them, adding insult to injury. Did he really think he could get away with this forever?
Arrogance often leads to downfall. The family, now in possession of Paul's SIM card, decides to involve the police. They're hoping it might hold some clue to Paul's whereabouts. But little do they know it's about to lead them to the horrifying truth.
It's amazing how often seemingly insignificant details can trip up even the most cunning criminals. What was it in this case that finally led the police to Ifa?
Well, the police launch a full-scale investigation. Remember? Those earlier attempts to silence Paul, the botched hitman, hire the dealings with the chief priest. Well, those loose ends come back to haunt Ifem.
It's like a domino effect, one lie leading to another, and eventually the whole structure comes crashing down. So walk us through how the investigation unfolds.
Well, the police start to notice inconsistencies in Ife's story. And as they dig deeper, they uncover a trail of deceit that leads straight back to him and his elaborate scheme following the breadcrumbs. They uncover the truth about the murder at the beach, the disposal of the body, and the involvement of the chief priest and his associates.
It's amazing how even the most meticulously planned crimes can unravel when you start pulling at the right threads.
And in this case, it's Ife's own attempts to cover his tracks that ultimately lead to his downfall. The return SIM card, intended to bolster his kidnapping story, becomes the key piece of evidence that cracks the case wide open.
It's a classic case of the villain being undone by his own arrogance. So what happens next? Does justice prevail?
It appears so. With the truth revealed, the police swiftly apprehend Ife, the chief priest, and several other individuals involved in the plot, while some culprits remain at large. The authorities are confident they will be brought to justice.
This is a huge relief. I know our listeners were on the edge of their seats, waiting to hear if Ife's web of lies would finally catch up with him.
It's a reminder that no matter how cunning or devious someone might be, the truth has a way of coming to light.
But what about Paul's family? Can they ever truly find closure after such a horrific ordeal?
That's a difficult question. The emotional scars of such a betrayal and the brutal loss of a loved one run deep.
Absolutely. And let's not forget the financial burden this ordeal placed on them. They drained their resources to pay those ransoms, all while Eve was getting richer and richer. Speaking of which, what did he do with all that stolen money?
That brings us to perhaps the most chilling detail of this entire story. Remember how Eve was a bricklayer by trade?
Yeah, that stark contrast with Paul's wealth was what made him so susceptible to Eve's manipulation in the first place.
Well, it turns out that Ife was using the millions he extorted from Paul's family to build himself a duplex.
So Eve out there building his dream home while Paul's family is struggling to make ends meet, talk about adding insult to injury.
It's a truly sickening revelation. It underscores the depths of Ife's depravity and his complete lack of remorse for the devastation he caused.
This whole story is just a stark reminder that evil can wear a familiar face, that even those we trust implicitly can harbor sinister intentions.
This case really shines a light on the darkest corners of human nature, the potential for greed, deceit, and violence that exists within us all.
It's a sobering thought, but one that's essential to grapple with if we want to understand the world around us. This story may be rooted in Delta State, Nigeria, but it speaks to universal themes of betrayal, ambition, and the fragility of human life.
And it compels us to confront uncomfortable questions about the nature of trust, the corrupting influence of greed, and the steps we must take to protect ourselves from those who seek to exploit our vulnerabilities.
I think what's particularly disturbing is the role the Otokutu community shrine played in all of this. The fact that Ife was able to manipulate the chief priest and twist sacred rituals into instruments of murder and deception.
It's a chilling example of how even in places of worship where we seek solace and guidance, darkness can take root.
It raises so many questions. How can we guard against such manipulation? How can we distinguish genuine spiritual guidance from those who would exploit faith for their own twisted purposes?
Those are questions that each individual has to grapple with, but I think this case underscores the importance of critical thinking, discernment, and a willingness to question even those we hold in high esteem.
Blind faith, as this story tragically demonstrates, can have devastating consequences.
This deep dive has taken us through the complexities of this crime and the depths of human darkness. But even amidst the darkness, there are glimmers of hope.
Where do you see those glimmers of hope?
In the resilience of Paul's family, in their determination to seek justice for their loved one, and in the dedication of the police, their commitment to unraveling the truth no matter how tangled the web of deceit.
It's a reminder that even in the darkest of times, the human spirit can endure, and the pursuit of truth and justice can ultimately prevail.
This story may have started in Delta State, Nigeria, but its lessons resonate far beyond geographical boundaries. It serves as a cautionary tale, urging us to be discerning in who we trust, vigilant against those who seek to exploit us, and unwavering in our pursuit of a world where such horrors are not just condemned, but actively prevented.
So as we conclude this deep dive, we leave you with a final thought. How can we as individuals and as a society create a world where trust is not so easily shattered, where greed does not hold such sway, and where the sanctity of human life is truly paramount? That's the question we must all grapple with, the challenge we must all strive to meet. It's just unsettling how Ife was able to manipulate the chief priest and use those sacred rituals for his own gain.
Well, this case really brings up that intersection of, faith, power, and vulnerability. Evie didn't just exploit Paul's trust, he exploited the community's belief system.
Yeah, he weaponized their faith. And the fact that he was able to convince the chief priest to go along with this plan, it makes you wonder, how can people protect themselves from that kind of manipulation?
Right, that's the million-dollar question. I think this case is a stark warning. It shows us that blind faith, even in figures of authority, can have devastating consequences.
It's easy to say we'd never fall for something like that, but you think about the pressure Ife put on the chief priest, the lies, the bribes.
And the cultural context, in many communities, a chief priest holds immense authority. Questioning them might be seen as, disrespectful or even sacrilegious.
That's true. So how do we balance the need for faith with the need for critical thinking? How can we be sure we're not being led astray?
It's a balancing act, but this case highlights the importance of informed faith. It's about asking questions, seeking multiple perspectives, and not being afraid to challenge authority, even spiritual authority.
This deep dive has been an emotional roller coaster. We've gone from the betrayal and greed to the brutality of the crime, and now these questions about faith and trust.
It's been a journey through the dark side of human nature, but also a testament to the power of resilience and the pursuit of justice.
It's a reminder that even when faced with unimaginable darkness, there's always hope. Hope that the truth will be revealed, that justice will be served, and that we can learn from these tragedies to prevent them from happening again.
This story may have started in Delta State, Nigeria, but the lessons are universal. It's a call to action for all of us to be more discerning, more vigilant, and more proactive in building a world where trust is valued, greed is checked, and the sanctity of human life is paramount.
So as we conclude this deep dive, we'll leave you with this thought. How can we, in our own lives and communities, foster a culture of informed faith, critical thinking, and empathy? Because ultimately, it's those values that will protect us from the darkness that exists in the world and within ourselves.